Okay, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for coming to Bible study. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Clubhouse. Thank you all for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Really appreciate y'all coming in today. If you want a copy of the handout, send me an email, pastorjeffreygoodine@gmail.com. That's pastorjeffreygoodine@gmail.com. And I will add you to the list, and you'll get a handout so that you can tune in, follow along, invite a friend, and have a watch party. And join us for Bible study. Tonight, we have another treat tonight. It is time for Thursday night tidbits and tunes, TNT, and with Diane. Diane?
Oh, thank you so much.
And Mo's gonna sing a rap.
Good one, Brian. Well, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here one more time. You know, I'm starting a good collection of these songs.
Good.
And I want to say a big hello to my family out there wishing me all these birthday wishes. And I want to say there's no better place than to be with my church family here today.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
It's your birthday today?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Our daughter is ours too.
I'm slippery under the radar.
Oh, good. She had the radar. She didn't tell nobody.
So I have a good song stuck in my head today. You know, as these songs go by and I listen and I practice, this was a good one to have stuck in my head. And it's called It Is Well. And, you know, when I did a little bit of research on it, all the other ones that came up was It Is Well With My Soul, which was an old song, right? A couple hundred years old. So this one here is, here's the word, a new word that I learned today, interpolation. So Bethel Music decided to write the words of this song and take it and twist it into this with another song that was old. Didn't know you could do that, but they took part of the old song and intertwined it with their own song. And I thought, oh, it's a beautiful song. And they just got it in 2015. And here's the words of the one that inserted her own words in the song. She goes, I was out backyard crying out to God, and he so clearly brought the phrase into my mind, the waves and wind still know my name. I could almost hear God laughing, and I knew bigger fish have been fried. I remember thinking that it was so true, and God has already come through so much in so many ways for me. He brought me an amazing husband, and he brought me to this great city of Redding, California. He's given me so much, and yet I was so worried. I went, wow, that's very nice, right? And so here's some of the lyrics for you. It's awesome. Even though like the first verse doesn't really quite rhyme, it's so beautiful. Grander earth has quaked before, moved by the sound of his voice. Seas that are shaken and stirred can be calmed and broken for my regard. I thought that was just beautiful. Poetic, if you like. So I hope that somebody out there gets a blessing out of this song. It is well. It is well. Grander earth has quaked before, moved by the sound of his voice. Seas that are shaken and stirred can be calmed and broken from my regard. Through it all, It is well, it is well. And at the end, it is well with my soul. That's where that old song 200 years ago lined up with that song. So thank you very much. I appreciate you for having me here and listening. And just in, I would say, wrapping it up in closing, I thought, okay, through it all, my eyes are on you. That's one of the ones that kind of keep, you got to keep your eyes, right? Mm-hmm. And so I thought I may need your help on this one, because it was Hebrews, and I believe it was 10. And when I did a little cut and paste, the Hebrews exact number didn't come out. But let me read it to you, and perhaps you'll be able to say, hey, let me tell you which Hebrews that is, okay? Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Is that Hebrews?
Yes.
Okay.
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 It's in Hebrews.
Okay. Thank you so much. One more time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
everybody.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Diane. Happy birthday to you. And many more. Good, good. Thank you. Thank you for that, Diane.
So would that be Diane and the Pips?
Thank you so very much. Tonight, God's people shall prosper. Now, this is going to a continuation from the lesson of last week, when said God foretells redemption. Well, today it is God's people shall prosper, and it is from the book of Isaiah, chapter 49, verses 18 to 23. I will read that tonight. I will be reading from the NIV version tonight. Isaiah chapter 49, starting at verse 18 to 23. And I'll be reading from the NIV version tonight. Lift up your eyes and look around. All your children gather and come to you. As surely as I live, declares the Lord, you will wear them all as ornaments. You will put them on like a bride. Though you were ruined and made desolate and your land laid waste, now you will be too small for your people, and those who devour you will be far away. The children born during your bereavement will yet say in your hearing, this place is too small for us. Give us more space to live in. Then you will say in your heart, who bore me these? I was bereaved and barren. I was exiled and rejected. Who brought these up? I was left all alone. But these, where have they come from? This is what the sovereign Lord said. See, I will beckon to the nations. I will lift up my banner to the peoples. They will bring your sons in their arms and carry your daughters on their hips. Kings will be your foster fathers, and queens your nursing mothers. They will bow down before you with their faces to the ground. They will lick the dust at your feet. Then you will know that I am the Lord. Those who hope in me will not be disappointed. And this is really addressing the return from captivity in Babylon. This is really what it's addressing. But it also talks about us and people today in things that we have overcome. We have the dark times in our lives. We have overcome those, and that made us a better person. And then even during the things that we experience during the dark times in our lives, some of those people are really going to help us along our way. They give us the strength. And as it said, he will make our enemy our footstool. So think of it in that terms, that God's people shall prosper, even though it don't look like it. Especially when we see that the wicked prosper. And we say, well, how come they prospering more than I am? But see, their prosperity is short-lived. Ours is going to be eternal. So God's people shall prosper. Now, if you think about it, when they came back from captivity, they came back to a land that's ruined. You're talking about after 70 years, a lot of the people that went back were born in captivity. They never saw Jerusalem at its heyday. So to them, when they go back, all they see is ruin. And they're kind of wondering, well, what are we doing here? But if they hold on, even though we've lost it all, as we say, we hold on, and God's people will prosper. Even though it don't look like it now. Because when you return from that dark place in your life, or that dark time in your life, you may have lost it all. Or everything that you thought was important. You lost it all. But your belief and holding on, God's people will prosper. Yes, that.
The text comes from the second servant. The second
Yes.
servant's song.
Second servant
So
song.
who is the servant to?
Well, the servant song in Isaiah.
There's a name.
There's 4 servant songs, and the lesson, last week's lesson and this week's lesson comes from the second song, which is a poem. We back in the first lesson from last week, it gave you those scriptures, and those scriptures from last week was Isaiah 42, 1 to 9, Isaiah 49, 1 to 7, Isaiah 50, 4 to 11, and Isaiah 52, 13 to 53,
Did I hear
12.
you say song or song?
Songs.
Oh, okay.
Okay, servant songs. Well, really they are poems that's talking about the Messiah, talking about the coming Jesus. And they make a reference to it in Isaiah. But the reference of it is that the people that, remember, he foretold of the prophesied of the 70-year captivity. And now he's talking about when they come back, that what they're going to see. And they're going to see, because remember, 70 years of captivity, there were some generations that died off. So you got this new group that's coming back, even though some of the old people came back, but you talk about some people that grew up in captivity. And so, Grandma and Grandpa is hauling us to this land, and we get here, and what do we see? Ruin. And so you become heartbroken. But the lesson, well, really what they're talking about here is that God's people shall prosper, even though it don't look like it now. And that's what he's talking about here in this song, in this part of this song. Now, the key verse is Isaiah 49 and 23. Kings will be your foster fathers and queens your nursing mothers. They will bow down before you with their faces to the ground. They will lick the dust at your feet. Then you will know that I am the Lord. Those who hope in me will not be disappointed. And he's talking about, remember when they went back and in Ezra, when we covered Ezra, and they went back, that the king sent word that you all are to help them, and the people who were already established in his kingdom in Jerusalem and Judah, word was sent that they are to help. So there were kings and rulers and things, but they were to help. God set it up so that they would help. The same thing again with Nehemiah, in that when he talked to the king and he asked to go back, the king said, well, if you're going to go back, and I'm just paraphrasing here, those of you that want to go back, you can go with him. Those of you that are staying, help them to go. Help them to go back. So, again, when we come from our dark place, God allows sometime our enemy to help us. So, but we will prosper. Now, the background. The previous lesson, God foretells redemption, predicted a great joy to be expressed by all. Gentiles in all directions would rejoice as the Lord comforts his people. 5 years later is when this lesson begins. So this is after 5 years. The foundation for the lesson is the people's return from captivity in Babylon. The text comes from the second servant song. Again, was in last week's lesson. The servant is the one who is speaking and is understood to be the Son of God. Although some suggest that the speaker is Isaiah, but the context indicates that the speaker is more than a prophet. And one of the things that when we're saying that it's not really Isaiah is when you look in verse 23, it says, then you will know that I am the Lord. Those who hope in me will not be disappointed. So
the servant is Jesus Christ.
Right. That's what they're talking about.
Is this written or is this oral? Is somebody speaking this or somebody writing this?
This is Isaiah writing it, I guess, or the prophet through
prophesizing.
Right. He's prophesizing.
So Jesus is telling him what to write.
In essence.
Okay. All right.
In essence.
I lost that context.
In essence. Because what he's doing is he's reminding the people that God, that when you come back from your dark place, that dark time in your life, the people that the enemy that got you there is far from you now. They will not harm you anymore when you turn it, when you come back, when you prosper in God's name. You will not be subjected to them anymore. So when we come back from our dark place and we return to God, a lot of times, as I say, we have new friends. New friends, new people. Those people who were dragging us down, in essence, is no longer around. Those people who were doing things to us to keeping us from prospering are no longer around. So, Isaiah 49, 18 to 21, the promise of restoration. The promise of restoration, that they will be restored. And when we talk about restoration, we have to be confident that things will be restored. One of the problems, or one of the drawbacks that I see is that when we, in our dark place, we lost it all. Well, we feel that we won't get back what we had, that we lost it all. But I'm here to tell you, you get back more, better than what you had before. But you have to trust that you will. Because when you lose it all, a lot of times that could be a good thing. Because remember now, the captivity into Babylon, they lost it all. They lost it all. And they were taken captive. So here we see that God's people, even though they were taken captive, even though they lost it all, even though their city is in ruin, and when they go back, that's what they see, ruin, that they will prosper. And we must hold on to that. We must hold on to that. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Clubhouse, congregation, anybody that can hear me. When you come out on the other side of that darkness in your life where you lost it all, you really are going to gain now, better than what you had before. And because we don't see it, and hear what he's telling the people is that although you lost it all, although you seem to not have it when you look at your present situation, that does not mean that that is the end. Because again, he says now you're going to flourish. Now you're going to flourish. And when we follow the story of them coming back, you realize that they grew, they prospered. Even in a desolate place. Because when they went back, they found ruin. When they went back. So when we come out of our dark place, that dark time in our lives, we probably, as again, lost it all, ruined some relationships, all of that stuff that we felt meant something that we don't have anymore. Now, when we hold on, we begin to prosper. And that's what the lesson is today, is holding on and remembering that when you come from your dark place, at that moment, there's a lot that is wasted in your life. And if you hold on, you will prosper. It might not look like it at the beginning, but you will prosper. So verse 18, lift up your eyes and look around. And this is a call to a new posture of hope, not desperation. And what it's saying is that when they came back from captivity, a lot of them were desperate because all they saw was ruin. So when you come back from your dark place, all you see is ruin. You look at the relationships that you ruined. You look at everything around you that you ruined. But you hold on. The people returning face desolation and ruin. Now, he said, dressing as a bride. Dressing as a bride, or when he says that you will wear them all as ornaments, you will put them on like a bride, which is all of the things that you went through in your dark time. Those are, as I did that sermon before, markers in the battlefield, where those things in your life, they're there.
Monuments.
Monuments, right, on the battlefield. They're there. They're there. They're not going anywhere. Yes, you did go through that dark time. Yes, you did. Yes, you did, lose some relationships, ruin some relationships. Yes, you did. But then you're going to wear all of that, because that's what made you who you are. And dressing as a bride is an analogy for turning toward joy instead of sorrow. You said, look at everything that you did. Now we're going to turn to joy, because that was a sad time in your life. Now, all of us is going through some sad times in our life. And before we, before we came to Jesus, and even when we come to Jesus, there's some sad times in our lives. But God's people will prosper. And you can look back over your life, and after you decided to make the commitment to Jesus Christ, and then you look at those sad times in your life. When you look back over your life, then you realize that when I look back over my life, those things made me stronger. So there is an assurance that the captives will be unable to cause more pain. They said those who devoured you will be far away. Those who devour you will be far away. And usually when you come out of your dark time, you have new friends. You have new friends.
Maybe a new outlook on life.
Yes, a new outlook on life. Yes, a new outlook on life. And I put here, this new group did not see Jerusalem at its best. This is 70 years exile. They did not, this group that's coming back, a lot of them did not see Jerusalem in its heyday. So all they're used to is captivity. And when they come back, they see ruin. And you know the question, what are we doing here? Everything is in ruin. But they must hold on. No, what insight can embracing our shared identity as God's bride give us regarding how to remain faithful to Him? Remember, Jesus said He's doing what? He's coming back for His bride. He's coming back for the church. He's coming back as a bride, groom coming for the bride. And so we've got to be ready. As a bride getting ready for marriage. So, what are some cultural expectations of brides that can serve as a warning? You know, some of the, and different cultures have different things about the brides. One that we have here that I know is that the bride is not to see the groom on the day of the wedding until they show up at the church or wherever they're getting married. That's one of the things that we, I guess. How would you encourage someone who is going through a time of spiritual darkness? Now, in the captivity, this was their spiritual darkness. But He also sent prophets that prophesied before captivity. You have prophets that prophesied during captivity. And then you have prophets that prophesied after captivity. So when someone's going through a time of spiritual darkness, sometimes, I'm saying, when we start talking scriptures and we start throwing the Bible at them and things of that nature, sometimes I say we drive them away because we beat them over the head with the Bible. We already know they're in a dark place. I think what would be better, or in my opinion, as small, minute, and insignificant as it is, I think that we should listen to them and let them tell us about their dark place. Because that dark place is real to them. It's not real to us. We've already been in our dark place. Our dark place is not like their dark place. But we can tell them after we listen to what they're talking about their dark place, we can be a reminder and we could be the picture to them to let them know that that dark place is only temporary. It's only temporary. So we would encourage. Now, verse 20. The children born during your bereavement will yet say in your hearing, this place is too small for us. Give us more space to live in. They're talking about growth. How might Isaiah 49:20 encourage a church that appears to be declining? Now, a lot of times, people look at numbers in a church to tell about the health of the church. Well, that could be true as far as, mega church, you got, all these people. That doesn't mean that they're paying tithes. It doesn't mean that they are functioning in the church. I mean, you could go to church and sit up in the church. You can go to church, sit up in the church, do your check off for the week, and the pastor wouldn't even know you're there. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing or whatever, but I can tell you this: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Clubhouse. You come to this church, pastor know who you are. Yes. And we don't tie things up in committee. We get it done. Yeah, Rick.
I got a good analogy here with big churches or small churches. It's kind of like sports. The statistics don't tell the whole story or determine the outcome.
Right. It doesn't. And a lot of times they look at the numerical growth of the church. And I can tell you this, the churches after the COVID shutdown, a lot of churches are not seeing those numbers. And people are still not going back. I mean, on my Zoom call, there are churches, the pastor, they still haven't opened yet. Now, to say that the numbers meant something, but see, God took all that out. He said, now let's see who's really for me. And just because the numbers are not there, that doesn't mean that there's not growth in the church. See, I base growth on the personal growth, their spiritual growth. When they came in and where are they now? As I say, and I used to tell my students when I taught college class, if at the end of the term, all you know was how to spell my name, you grew. You grew. Because when you got here, you didn't know how to do it. And now you know how to spell my name. But I also remind you that I could tell what you learned because all I got to do is ask you questions. And when you start rattling off the answer, you realize that you learned more than you thought. But, as simple as that. But growth in the church does not necessarily mean numbers. A church can swell, and boy, we already know if you want to talk about swelling, bump your toe. That sore thumb, that's a swell. And eventually it'll do what? It'll go back down. But along the way, it done swollen, like I say, it's a sore thumb. But I think that growth is not necessarily numbers in the church. I mean, people like, would I like large numbers in the church? Sure. But then does large numbers, equate into spiritual growth? Because a lot of
a meeting about a meeting.
yeah, and the meeting after the meeting,
It's quality, not quantity.
Right.
That's it.
And so that's why I think that there are other measures besides growth in the church, and I look at it as their growth, their spiritual growth.
Right.
And I've noticed in this church we've all grown together. We've all grown together. I've grown, you've grown, they've all grown. Ooh, I conjugated that verb. Very good. Okay, so see, I learned something in school. Now, on verse 21, now this is how God works. Disorientation. The change in fortune will cause extreme disorientation, which is beyond their wildest dreams. Then you will say in your heart, who bore me these? I was bereaved and barren. I was exiled and rejected. Who brought these up? I was left all alone. But these where have they come from? They have no idea where the blessings come from. All they know is they was in a dark time, and listen, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Clubhouse, Congregate, anybody hear me? We know that during our dark time, we lost it all. But then when we held on, the blessings started coming our way, and then we realized that we didn't do anything to deserve this blessing. Then they start coming out the woodwork, as they say. And so, where did it come from? He's blessing me even in the midst of my sin. So, the change, and what he's saying is that the change here from the feeling of desperation and sorrow to joy and prosperity will blow their mind. Now, listen, we all got a testimony of how God blew our mind.
Where you want to start?
Yeah. We ain't got that time in Bible study.
And it keeps going.
Right, that beyond our wildest dreams. So he's saying that this is going to cause disorientation, which means that they're going to want to know, where did this come from? Where did this come from? Now, I put a note here. Is being surprised by God's blessing a faithful reaction? Being surprised, knowing that we're faithful in our belief, so when the blessing comes, we may not know what the blessing is, but the blessing is, it came as a surprise, but it's a blessing. But it's a blessing. Now, how would you encourage a friend who's struggling to accept God's blessings? Now, that's a tough one.
Not really.
They have to understand and see God. If we tell them, you know, a lot of times when we tell them that they've been blessed by God, if they don't believe that in themselves, if they don't believe in themselves that this was a blessing from God, then our words are just that. Because they don't believe that when we tell them, you know, that's a blessing from God, they go, yeah.
Sure it is.
Yeah, you know, that's a blessing. You know, but we're serious. Because we can see it, that this is a blessing from God. And then we try to explain to them how this is a blessing from God. And then what we end up doing is, what I call the cardinal sin, is beating them over the head with the Bible now.
Not necessarily.
You know?
You can, first you have to find out if someone believes in God.
Right,
Okay.
right.
You believe in God? Yes. Okay, great. Know what you do? What? Let go, let God.
Right.
And look at you like a deer in headlights and say, I never heard that before.
Yeah.
So, well, you're hearing it now.
Hear it
Or I
now.
can't stop. I can't stop worrying. That would be their rebuttal.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I can't stop worrying when, and then we would be, well, worrying is not going to solve the issue.
What does that show?
You know, worrying is not going to solve the issue because the issue is still there.
Right. So you say, well, what if you took all that negative energy of worry and put it into prayer?
Put it
Where would you
properly.
be?
Right.
And they look at you with deer in headlights.
They're in the headlights again.
Now you got their attention.
So again, we have to understand that when, see, we understand it as being God's blessing, but they have to believe that it is a blessing.
You have to convince them.
Right. That this is a blessing from God. And what we fail to do sometimes is to not beat them over the head with the Bible. Even though we're trying to get them to see that this is a blessing, and then we find ourselves going back to the Bible and doing scripture, and before you know it, you know, and then, you know, I don't know, we beat them over the head. I don't know. Now, 22 and 23. This is the explanation of restoration. This is what the sovereign Lord said. See, I will beckon to the nations. I will lift up my banner to the people. They will bring your sons in their arms and carry your daughters on their hips. The kings will be your foster fathers and queens your nursing mothers. They will bow down before you with their faces to the ground. They will lick the dust at your feet. Then you will know that I am the Lord. Those who hope in me will not be disappointed. Now, foreigners called. God will use foreigners to accomplish his will for the people. God will use foreigners. He will use the non-believer on your behalf. He will use the Babylonians were overthrown by the Persians.
Would it be like he'll use the non-Jews to help?
Right.
Basically.
Yes. Yes. And he uses people to his advantage. See, to punish the people, who did he use? He used non-Jews. He used the Babylonians. But then after the 70 years, now he punished the Babylonians. See, like I said, we got a believing God, but we also got a strange God. We got a God that will allow the enemy to come in and to straighten you out and then punish the enemy.
We may not see that.
And make the enemy do things for you.
When it happens, you'll know it.
You know. So Gentiles will provide help for the sons and daughters who made a return trip to Judah. Kings and queens will nurture the people. And this is, if you see Exodus chapter 2, verses 1 to 20, that's on Moses when the Pharaoh's daughter finds him. And then you have Ezra chapter 6, verses 8 to 10. This is when the word came back that you ought to help them, that all the money you raise ought to help them restore. So again, he will use the foreigner. He will use the foreigner.
The stranger.
Yes, the stranger to do his will for you. And that's why I'm saying that now they're looking, they're like, where in the world is this coming from? All of this, this prosperity, so where is it coming from? And there are people that I thought hated me are now doing things to help me. And you know what? They don't even know why. They don't even know why. But they know they're doing it. A lot of times your enemy don't know why they're doing these things for you. All they know is that they're doing it. Those who heed God's call will humble themselves to him and be glad to serve his people. This is what the king did when they went back. He told them that this is the God you will serve. When you build a temple, this is the God that you will serve in the temple. Now, verse 23 again, hopeful and not shamed. Knowing starts with accepting the facts. What are the facts?